Sorry about that. I accidentally hit stop. My finger is like right by my right next to the mouse. So I guess this is part 3, unintentionally. But I was gonna have multiple parts anyway. Um, but I wasn't. I accidentally stopped the video. So part 3 of my book collection, I left off at the Arab-Israeli conflict. The author's name is David W. Lesh. So that's Lesch. And I'm just repeating this for, anybody who's interested in getting the book. But yeah, again, that's what it looks like. And yeah, I see a lot of earmarks in this book. Yeah. So I took like a lot of notes in this book. Then you can kind of see. Actually, I shouldn't do that. It's kind of hard to see. But it was interesting when I was reading about the conflict between Israel and Palestine. I mean, this conflict has been happening for decades before I was born. I think even longer than that. Yeah, I think more than decades. And but yeah, when I was reading about like um, the war between Israel and Palestine. Israel, it was talking about how Israel was like outnumbered, and then they just like fought with Palestine, and it was like a really intense battle. And um, they're fighting over land. That's biblical too. This is also a biblical conflict, and it's a conflict over land. It's Israel, and it is Israel's land. But Israel's saying this is the land given to us by God, which is true, and then Palestine is like, no, it's our land, and so yeah, that's basically that's like the main focus of these wars and their battle. Trying to get into. I forgot where exactly in the book I was reading about this battle. But yeah, it's pretty intense. It was interesting to learn more about this conflict. But yeah, it was also funny because, well, not funny, but it was interesting because when I was taking this class at that time, like, um, there were there was like some tensions in the Middle East. I forgot like exactly what was happening, but it was between these two countries. It was Israel and Palestine, and I think they were exchanging missiles back and forth. And um, yeah, it was all over the news. And then like people were blaming Israel, or like, oh, you're oppressing Palestine and you're killing all these Palestinian children and women and men. And this is in the Bible too. Like a lot of countries are going to like, um, they're going to like go against. They're gonna like group against Israel. They're gonna like come against them, and it's supposed to be like a lot worse than what it is now. Right now it's just Palestine, but like in the future, it's going to be a lot more countries that are going to come against Israel and attack them. This is prophesied in the Bible. But this conflict, uh, Arab-Israeli conflict, is definitely in the Bible. And it's also like religions too, because you have the Muslims and you have the Shiites. And yeah, then you have the Israeli Jews, and yeah, you have that conflict too. Okay, it was a very bloody war, and it's still going on to this day, and it will go on for the foreseeable future too. But it was an important class, especially since I was learning about it. Was I mean, it was interesting, like taking a class and then you can relate that you're saying like it happened on the news, like you're seeing it live happen in real time, this conflict, and then you're learning about it in class, and then you can kind of compare what's going on right now with learning about this conflict in your textbook. And that's what I was doing. I was like, wow, I can learn from all of this, like from what I'm seeing in the news, when I'm reading in my book. I was like, oh. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time, you know. Um, so yeah, I was paying attention to that. Okay, I have the last book in this stack. Sorry, I'm just gonna move these over because this is kind of piling up over here. Trying to make this even. Trying to make this stack more even. Okay. Next book is Strategies for Successful Writing, a Rhetoric Research Guide, Reader, and Handbook by James A. Reinking and Robert von der Osten. New 2016 MLA updates. Yeah, I got this some years ago. Oh, okay. I remember what I was going to say. I'm going to say it before I forget. All right, so I'm just going to mention, just like throw this in there. Now, when I was short on cash, and back then that was most of the time, I just did whatever I could to, like make a little money for myself, without a job. Um, and sometimes that included selling my textbooks. And I didn't do this online. I preferred to do it in person because it was easier for me. And at my school, this was at Harold Washington College. And at the end of each semester, you could go downstairs and turn your books in, and then they would give you cash in return. And how much you got depended on like the condition of the book, of course, and yeah, I think that was pretty much it, and how many books that you gave to them. Um, but yeah, I usually didn't get a lot of money, but like sometimes I got more money than I was expecting. I just wanted something. So, when I got pretty desperate for cash, that's what I would do at the end of each semester. And it was like so difficult for me to do because I was in this point in my educational journey. I was just getting, more serious and more into my major. And I have a I have a really special like relationship with my book. I remember um, when I was yeah, it was just so sad for me to give away my books. I didn't want to do this. It was just like, I had no other option, and I just didn't want to do it. It was like but yeah, I remember one time I was selling my books, and I have this book in this collection. It was one of my criminal justice books. And I learned so much from this book and this professor too. And I took so many notes in it, and I just remember with this particular book I just didn't want to, like, it was difficult for me to part with. So as I was giving it to the person so they can exchange money for it, I just like I just like kissed the book, like I was like bye, and I was talking to it, and it had to be so weird for the people who were like, taking the book from me. And then the guy, he was like, "Oh, was that a good book?" And I was like, "Yeah," even though I didn't read the whole thing, but from what I did read, it was a really informative book. And yeah, I didn't want to give any of my books away. It was like really heartbreaking for me because like I grew attached to these books like at the end of the semester. Not just the books, but just also with the professor and like some of my classmates, not all of them, but some of them, and just like, you kind of form like a little bond at the end of those 4 months, and then you have to, it's not like high school, it's not like middle school, like you have the same teacher and you see the same people every day for almost like a year. But in college it's just different. Like at the end of each semester, the end of those 4 months, you might take a class again, um, but it'll be the next level. You won't take the same class at the end of each semester. So you only have 4 months before you move on to something completely different. And at the end of those 4 months, I just grew attached to the books, and like, I just, and it was more than that. It was just, they're books, it's knowledge. And um, why throw them away? Like, why give them away? I mean, it's even like when I was younger, I didn't care about this. Like, I couldn't keep the books anyway. It was property of the school. Like of at the end of the school year, we didn't buy those books with our money. Our parents didn't buy those books, so we had to give it back to the classroom, to the teacher, and then the next class would use it. We didn't take those books home with us, like, you know. But now I'm paying for these books, uh, and then I didn't care about what happened to the books. And I'd even throw things out. I would throw my homework out. It was just like I realized how far I've come in my educational journey, and like how more seriously I've been taking this. And I keep everything now. I keep my planners too. Not all my planners. My planners I can throw out. But I definitely don't throw out my homework anymore. I don't throw out my notebooks. I don't throw out any notes. I keep everything. I keep my backpack. Of course, I keep my school supplies. I mean, why throw away binders and backpacks if you know if you don't need to? Um, but my books, I definitely keep. I can't see myself parting with any of my books. I just can't. I can't see myself selling them again. I just can't do, especially since most of these books, I took the trouble of repurchasing them because, like I said, sometimes I had to sell them for money, and then I go online, find them, and then I purchase them again. And I just don't want to part with them again because these books are very important to me, and I really do believe they could serve me a purpose. Like even if I even if I win the election, maybe I might need to refer back to these books if I'm having trouble making a decision. I mean, these are very informative, important books to have. And I can see myself like I can see myself having these books for the rest of my life. I just need to keep them in good condition. But yeah, I couldn't remember for the life of me what I wanted to say, and now I just remembered it. Um, yeah, I sold most of these books, and now I'm just happy to have a lot of them back in my possession. Um, and so yeah, uh, how did I get on that topic? Well, that's another story. Anyways, next book, Primary Politics. Everything you need to know about how America nominates its presidential candidates. Third edition by Elaine C. Kmark. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Here's what it looks like. I think I got this new. Some of these books still have that new book smell. Yeah, this still has it. But that's weird. I'm smelling my books. I like that new book smell though. Um. Anyway, yeah, this was a class I took. It was about elections, and it wasn't as hard as international relations, but this was also like kind of a difficult subject for me. But I did learn some new things from that class I didn't know before. Uh, I know this is really sad, guys. Some of this stuff that I should have known a long time ago, like when I was in elementary or high school. Some of the stuff I was kind of late. I was kind of late on learning. I kind of get ashamed sometimes that I don't know like everything that I should know at this age. Like I'm in college and I really don't know the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. Just like, oh, I hate sharing this right now, but it was just like with math, a lot of things that were starting to click when I was in college that just didn't click years ago. Like I was in college and didn't know how to do fractions. Now I know. Now I can do it in my head. I don't know if I talked about this before in other videos, but yeah, it's just I don't know, like some of these things, and I mean I acknowledge it. I should have known these things like a long time ago, but some of it I'm just learning now, and yeah, I mean, better late than never, I guess. But yeah, in this class, I learned more. This election class, I learned more about the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. I mean, I knew there were political parties. There were major political parties in America, but I didn't know like specifically what differentiated them from each other. Um, so yeah, so I learned in this class. Republicans or conservatives, they're they're for like smaller uh, government intervention. Um, they're all like, work hard for what you have. No handouts. Well, not no handouts because the stimulus money that was given to us not too long ago. Both the Democrats and Republicans were in agreement with that. So I mean, when it's really needed, but just like not all the time, or not even most of the time. Um, and the Liberal Party, they're more about the people, like more government intervention in people's lives. They want to help the poor. They want to help the immigrants, even the illegal immigrants. Um, yeah, they're more for socialism. But I think that's the main difference between the Democrats and Republicans. Like one is for more government and one is for less government. And I mean, of course, there's other differences too. So, what else did I learn in this? Oh yeah, we learned about like the different presidential elections. We had to like do group presentations. Each group did a presentation on uh, each presidential election. Not for everyone, of course, because there's like 47 presidents, so we're not gonna do an election for each president for 4 months and with a limited number of groups. But we covered the main ones like uh, George Bush's election. Oh, who else? I don't remember. Like the main presidents, though. I don't know why this was a difficult book for me to process, but it was. trying to figure out what more I can say. But yeah, that's it for now. Primary politics. This is another essential read for me if I am going to run in an election. I need to know more about how elections function in this country. Pretty much all of my political science books, with the exception of a few, are, essential in one way or another. Oh, the Mueller Reports. Another one of my favorites. This was definitely interesting. The final report of a special counsel into Donald Trump, Russia, and collusion. So yeah, this was really big when it came out. It's got a lot of buzz in the media. And I got it as quick as I could because I didn't want them to sell out. Now, the reason why I got this book, this was back when I was like speaking at city council, and I was trying to make arguments supporting President Trump because he was just going through it. He was like, going through the attacks, going through the what was it called, the impeachment, saying that he colluded, like he and what was this about the. I think this was about the 20. Was it the 2016 election? I think that was. I'm pretty sure that was the first impeachment trial was the 2016 election, and accusing President Trump and his staff of influencing the elections in his favor. And I haven't read the Mueller report in its entirety, but I was surprised because, well, I mean, at the end, Robert Mueller said there was no collusion. Like, President Trump, he didn't, like, conspire with Russia. Like, he didn't influence the elections in that way. Like, it was Russia, and I think it was some other countries. Was China mentioned? I'm not sure. Well, it was definitely Russia. They were like disguising themselves by, like, they were using social media, some social media platforms. I think it was Facebook and Twitter. We're using social media basically to influence the elections in President Trump's favor. And of course, there's an issue with that because a foreign country can't, like, they can't. They're not allowed to influence another country's elections. That's dangerous. That's not supposed to happen. So they're saying President Trump was involved with Russia in doing all that. And President Trump, he made some jokes about it. And I remember him joking about that because, I mean, he didn't do anything. I know he didn't do anything. And Robert Mueller said he didn't do anything. So that's why he was acquitted the first time. But yeah, I was trying to, inform myself, educate myself more on this issue. And that's why I was reading this book, because I want to know, when I'm making arguments in support of my favorite president, I want to, know what I'm talking about, and I want to have the facts. And this book had a lot of the facts. And just over and over and over again, he was mentioning throughout the book that President Trump was not involved in any way in this collusion. I'm trying to see the exact words that he used. Okay, here it is. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. So, I mean, basically, that's saying um, through this investigation, they found that uh, they're saying Russia would have benefited through all the things that they were accusing President Trump of doing, but President Trump himself didn't do any of those things, is basically what they're saying. And they said this multiple times throughout the book. I'm like, you know, the guy who you hired to do the investigation into the collusion is saying there's no proof of President Trump doing that. And they, still kept talking about it after the whole impeachment was over, saying he did do it. They just didn't want to, accept the facts. They were right in front of their face. Then they tried to impeach him the second time. It didn't work. But that's another story for another time. Okay, next book. This was an education class that I took because another focus of mine is education and education reform more specifically. Our public schools definitely need more work in this country, and just the education system in general. You're seeing all these videos trending right now of young Americans not knowing anything, not knowing basic history, not knowing basic math, not knowing basic science, not knowing just like anything about the basic core subjects that they should know. And these are, young adults. These aren't kids. These aren't teenagers. Most of them are in college. Most of them that are interviewed in these videos. And they're just being all these people and this whole country and our education system is being mocked nationally and internationally. We're just like, we're not at the top in the world in education. We're like kind of at the bottom. And I predict it's going to get worse as time goes on. And so that's what I want to focus on. Like, and I'm seeing how I'm seeing how everything connects. Like politics it plays a role in pretty much everything, in economics, in education, in science, and everything. Like even if it's a small part, it still plays a role in all pretty much all parts of life. And education's one of them, and I wanted to have an influence in that aspect, in that area. So I took this education class. I wound up dropping this class, I think, in the first week or the second week. Because first of all, the professor was horrible. And second of all, it was just like, it was a waste of time. And I wasn't supposed to take that class. That's why I was kind of forced to drop it. Because it was only for education majors. So there was like some tests and some things they had to do, and I couldn't, even though I wanted to, like, try to do it, and I was interested in this class, even though it was a horrible professor. I eventually had to drop it because it was for education majors only. And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but like, it was just disappointing for me because some of these classes, because I have interests outside of political science, I like to get into other areas, and with some of these majors, with some of these subjects like education, psychology is another one. They're only set as they're only preserved, not preserved. What's it called? Yeah, preserved for like the people who were majoring in that subject. Education was one of them. So yeah, if I wanted to learn more about education, I would have to, find a class that was open to all majors, or I just have to like do some independent research on that. So unfortunately, I had to drop this class. It was unfortunate and it was fortunate because I couldn't stand that professor, and we just like got into it too many times. But anyway, enough about that. The title of this book is Culture and Power in the Classroom: Educational Foundations for the Schooling of Bicultural Students by Antonia Darter. And here it is. This is another book that I don't know, I didn't really take too seriously because I don't know, like it's important to know the needs of bicultural students because they're coming from a different country, and like there's language barriers, uh, there's other barriers, cultural barriers, um, that they need to get through in order to get the same quality of education as a non-bicultural student. So I'm not saying that's not important to learn about the needs of bicultural students, but we need to focus on our own students first before we get into other students. We need to focus on our other struggling students, like our disabled students or special needs students. Then after we take care of that, then we can focus on bicultural students. So I wasn't really like into that book, but I still kept it because it's still a book. So I did keep that one. Oh, here's another one that, yeah, I didn't really like this one either. It's called Place Matters. I think this was a class I took on urban planning, urban something urban. I think it was urban planning. Place Matters, Metropolitics for the 21st Century. Um, the only thing I remember about this book is where we're talking about like, let's see, this professor like said something that I really disagreed with. It was more of that social justice stuff. We learned about this one term that I wasn't familiar with before. It was called sprawl, and what did it mean? I think it meant like I think it meant when people from what was it from the city go into the suburbs. I think that's what the sprawl meant. But I think I remember my professor in this class. She was saying something about like she was making it seem like it was a bad thing that a lot of these people from this city were like migrating into the suburbs, and they were saying like, well, we're leaving like a high concentration of the poor in these like in these concentrated areas, like for example Chicago, we have the south and west side, um and there's a lot of like poverty in those areas, and yeah, and then but yeah, she was saying like she was making it to seem like that was a bad thing. Like, I mean, if you can find better opportunities in the suburbs, if you don't want to deal with like the inner city violence and the poverty and all of that stuff, then I would move too. Like, I mean, of course, now there's violence all over. The violence is spreading into the suburbs too, but no, that's not a bad thing. That's a personal choice that if it benefits somebody's life, then I don't see how that's a bad thing. Like, Yeah, so that's Place Matters. Let me flip through this real quick. I don't remember too much else about this book. Yeah, okay. I'll just move on to the next one because it's almost 40 minutes. I'm going to have to make my part 4 soon. And I'm going to just run through the rest of these. So I got 4 more books in this stack. Timing Successful Policy Change by Anna Marie Shu. Lessons from the Civil Service. This is my professor. She wrote this book. I think this is the only class. Sometimes you take classes with the professor and like their textbooks. That's they're authors of that textbook, so they're assigning their own books. So this is the only class that I've had where the professor assigned a textbook that she actually wrote. And I think there was a few more that she wrote. But yeah, this is one of them. Timing Successful Policy Change. Another book about policy. International Relations. Here we go. Essentials of International Relations. This was the book for my introductory international relations class. This is really, 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 really heavy stuff. Like, this is so heavy. I did learn a lot in this class. My professor in this class was so smart, and she was a good professor. And I was able to retain a lot that I learned in this class. And some of this kind of intersected with some of the stuff I learned in my political theory class, I believe, because some of the international relations theories, what were these theories called? There were like different theories. I might have to flip through the book. And some of the philosophers that I learned about in my political theory class, they came up with these international relations theories. I think Thomas Hobbes. Oh gosh, what was the? Hold on. I might have to do this more often. I like talking about this stuff because Thomas Hobbes, he was cynical when it came to human nature, and what was his theory? He said that people couldn't be trusted, and that you had to be extra vigilant. What was it? Okay, here it is. I think. Yeah, here it is. The State and Foreign Policy. I believe this is it. Realism/neorealism, liberalism/neoliberal institutionalism, and constructivism. Yeah, this is really heavy stuff, guys. Realism is emphasis on coercive techniques of power, use of force acceptable. Yeah. Constructivists hold that foreign policy decisions are based on 2 major factors. First is the country's strategic culture, the decision maker's interpretation of a country's historical experience, including philosophies, values, institutions, and understandings of its geography and development. Yeah, I mean, even still, like, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around these different theories. But this was the focus of international relations. Like, everything else was centered on these 3 main theories: constructivism, liberalism. What was the other one? I forgot the other one. And realism. And but I'm trying to find out which one Thomas Hobbes. You know what? I think Thomas Hobbes was the realist. He was definitely wasn't a liberalist. He wasn't a. I don't think he was a constructivist. You know what? I'm sorry. I don't want to take too much time away from the other books we have to get through. But yeah, some of my classes intersected with each other, which was really exciting. I made a note of every time that happened. Um, Sometimes in class, I would even like talk about how these different um, how these different classes intersected with each other. It was so fascinating, and it was really cool to notice. Um, but yeah, I don't know what theory Thomas Hobbes fell under. I think it was realism. Uh, who else? But yeah, I made a lot of notes in this book, a lot of earmarks. This is a very, very, very important book. International relations, essentials of international relations. So, uh, if you want an introductory on that subject, then that's a good book to get. But I'm just warning you, it's really heavy. It's really intense. It's really dense. So, yeah. But I mean, as a political science major, I'm not majoring. I don't want to major in international relations, but it's definitely relevant and important. Um, Especially like, if I'm going to be involved in diplomacy and meeting with other world leaders. It's good to know about how what's happening in other countries, because that's how I can make relations with other countries. Um, so yeah, what else do I want to say about this book? Because this is one of my top books. I haven't said too much about it, but yeah, I mean, because we learned so much, I definitely saved a lot of notes from this class. I saved like everything from this class. Well, I can't remember the term that. Okay, I'll just move on because I want to talk about more, but like, there's just so much I learned in that class. I'll just have to get back to it, maybe in another part. Okay, two more books. This one is Literature for Composition: An Introduction to Literature. This is another big book. And yeah, this is another book that I sold and then I reordered it. Yeah, this is like, I think this is a collection of short stories and poems, and yeah, and this is also like a good book because yeah, it says new 2016 MLA updates. I'll have to get an updated version because we're in 2022 now. But a lot of college classes, when you're writing papers, especially like if you're taking a literature class, they have these guidelines, this format that they're like really obsessive about the formats that you write these papers in. They have to be MLA, or they have to be, what was the other one? Okay, I forgot the other one. I'm sorry. But yeah, they're really like specific about the format. So if you want to learn more about like the format that you're supposed to write, I mean, this is a good book for that. Okay, last one, and then I'm gonna end it here. Oh, this is one of my favorites. So sad I didn't get into this one much either. I took a whole class on presidents and the presidency. Uh, this sticker is I can't see it. Understanding. Hold on. Understanding the Presidency. This is one of my top books. If I have to get rid of any book in my collection and I can only save one book, it would probably be this one, because the Presidency, that's my, like, that's where I want to end up in my career. That's any other office that I try to run for, the Presidency is where I want to ultimately end up. And yeah, I definitely have to read more of this book. Sorry you can't see because of the stickers, but that's the name of the book, Understanding the Presidency. Yeah. And I do know a lot of things already about the presidency, about the White House, how it operates. That's the executive branch. That's the highest branch. So, yeah, I know the basics and more than the basics. But yeah, this book definitely goes more in depth about that. Okay, and that's the last book. This is getting into an hour now, so I'm gonna stop it here. And I think this is part 2 or 3. I'll number it later. I think this is part 3, and I'm gonna make a part 4. I don't know if it's gonna go into a part 5, because I'm still seeing like a lot of books in my bin. It's like halfway full, so I'll take out the books and then I'll figure out like how many more parts. It's gonna be at least 2 more parts, but at the very least 1 more part. So I might just do everything in the next part. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, stay tuned for that. We're going to get into the last of my book collection for now.